A lot of times in the Torah, we get a doublet or even a triplet. It'll be a story told the same way about two different people, or the same story told in slightly different ways about the same person. There'll always be, little differences in the doublets. The similarities are what grab your eye. Is this a case with the flood story? Yes, it is. I was originally skeptical of this. I said there's one flood story. Yes, in one place it says two of every kind of animal, while in the other place it says seven pairs of the clean with two of the unclean. I got the book. The Bible of Sources Revealed. This is by Richard Elliott Friedman. Basically what this does, and this is a great book to have. What this does is it breaks the Torah down into JPED. Let's take a look at the flood story with the sources revealed. I'm Steve Perry. This is Biblical Anarchy, and today what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the two flood stories. The first one we're going to read through in the blue is the P source, the priestly source. The second one in the green is going to be the J source. And we're going to start in chapter 6, verse 9. Noah was a virtuous man. He was unblemished in his generations. Noah walked with God. And Noah fathered 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the earth was corrupted before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw the earth, and here it was corrupted, because all flesh had corrupted its way on the earth. And God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, because the earth is filled with violence because of them. And here, I'm destroying them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms with the ark, and pitch it outside and inside with pitch. And this is how you shall make it. 300 cubits the length of the ark, 50 cubits its width, and 30 cubits its height. You shall make a window for the ark, and you shall finish it to a cubit from the top, and you shall make the ark's entrance in its side. You shall make lower, second, and third stories for it. And I'm bringing the flood, water on the earth, to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life from under the skies. Everything that is in the earth will expire. And I shall establish my covenant with you, and you'll come to the ark, you and your sons and your wives and your sons' wives with you. And all of the living of all flesh you shall bring of each to the ark to keep alive, 2 of each to the ark to keep alive with you. They shall be male and female. Of the birds by their kind, and the domestic animals by their kind, and of all creeping things on the earth by their kind, 2 of each will come to you to keep alive. And you take some of every food that will be eaten, and gather it to you, and it will be for you and them for food. And Noah did it according to everything that God had commanded him. He did so. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood was water on the earth. Of the animals that were pure, and of the animals that were not pure, and of the birds and everything that creeps on the ground, they came by twos to Noah, to the ark, male and female, as God had commanded Noah. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, in the 17th day of the month, on this day, all the fountains of the great deep were split open, and the apertures of the skies were open. In this day Noah came, and Shem and Ham and Japheth, Noah's sons, and Noah's wife and his sons' 3 wives with him to the ark, they and all the wild animals by their kind, and all the domestic animals by their kind, and all the creeping things that creep on the earth by their kind, and all the birds and of their kind, and fowl, and all winged things. And they came to Noah to the ark by twos of all flesh, in which was a breath of life, and those that came were male and female. Some from all flesh came, as God commanded him. And all flesh that creep on the earth, of the birds and of the domestic animals and of the wild animals, and all the swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all the humans expired. And the water grew strong on the earth 150 days, and God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and all the domestic animals that were with him in the ark. And God passed a wind over the earth, and the waters decreased, and the fountains of the deep and the apertures of the skies were shut, and the water receded at the end of 150 days, and the ark rested in the 7th month, in the 17th day of the month, on the mountains of Ararat, and the water went on receding until the 10th month. In the 10th month, in the 1st of the month, the tops of the mountains appeared, and he let a raven go. It went back and forth until the water dried up from the earth. And it was in the 601st year, in the 1st month, in the 1st of the month, the water dried from on the earth. And in the 2nd month, in the 27th day of the month, the earth dried up. And God spoke to Noah, saying, Go out from the ark, you and your sons wives with you. Bring out with you all the living things that are with you, of all flesh, of the birds and of the domestic animals, and of all the creeping things that creep on the earth, and they will swarm in the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. And Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him, all the living things, all the creeping things, and all the birds, all that creep on the earth went out from the ark by their families. So there we have a full flood story reading just the blue. Can we do the same in the green? Now, here we're obviously going to start in chapter 7, where the green starts, and we're going to notice right away one of the big differences between the two accounts. And Hashem said to Noah, Come, you and all your household, into an ark, for I've seen you as virtuous in front of me in this generation. Of all the pure animals, take 7 pairs, man and his woman, and of the animals that are not pure, 2, man and his woman. Also of the birds of the skies, 7 pairs, male and female, to keep seed alive on the face of the earth. Because in 7 more days I'll rain on the earth, 40 days and 40 nights, and I'll wipe out all the substance that I've made from on the face of the earth. And Noah did according to all Hashem had commanded him. And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him came to the ark from before the waters of the flood. And 7 days later, the waters of the flood were on the earth, and there was rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And Hashem closed it, and the flood was on the earth for 40 days, and the waters multiplied and raised the ark, and it was lifted from the earth, and the waters grew strong and multiplied very much on the earth. And the ark went on the face of the waters, and the waters had grown very, very strong on the earth. So they covered all the high mountains that are under all the skies. 15 cubits above, the waters grew stronger, and they covered the mountains. Everything that had the breathing spirit of life in its nostrils, everything that was on the ground, died. And he wiped out all the substance that was on the face of the earth, from human to animal, to creeping thing, and to bird of the skies, and they were wiped out from the earth, just Noah and those who were with him in the ark were left. And the rain was restrained from the skies, and the waters went back on the earth, going back continually. And it was at the end of 40 days, and Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made, and he let a dove go from him to see whether the waters had eased from the face of the earth. And the dove did not find a resting place for its foot. And it came back to him, to the ark, for the waters were on the face of the earth. And he put out his hand and took it and brought it to him on the ark. And he waited still another 7 days, and he again let a dove go from the ark. And the dove came to him at evening time, and there was an olive leaf torn off in its mouth. And Noah knew that the waters had ceased from the earth. And he waited still another 7 days, and he let a dove go, and it did not come back to him ever again. And Noah turned back the covering of the ark and looked, and here the face of the earth had dried. And Noah built an altar to Hashem, and he took some of each of the pure animals and of each of the pure birds, and he offered sacrifices on the altar. And Hashem smelled the pleasant smell, and Hashem said to his heart, I won't curse the ground on account of humankind again, because the inclination of the human heart is bad from their youth, and I won't strike all the living again as I have done. All the rest of the earth's days, seed and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night will not cease. Again, we have a complete story here. Now let's talk about a couple of the differences that we encounter between the two. One of the biggest differences you're going to notice is the name of God. Of course, in the J source, we have the Tetragrammaton, the YHWH, whereas in the priestly source, we just have Elohim, the generic name for God. Another big difference is the number of animals. In the priestly version of events, you just have 2 of each kind, but in the J source, you have 7 pairs of the clean animals, and just 1 pair of the unclean animals. Of course, in the J source, you also have the sacrifice, whereas in the priestly source, you don't. There's no priest there to make the sacrifice, so the priestly source isn't going to give you a sacrifice. Let's see. I'm just going off the top of my head here. In the J source, we see the animals called, I believe in the J source, they're called man and his woman, whereas in the P source, they're called male and female. Not that that's a big difference or anything to jump on, but it just shows that these are different accounts because of the different languages that are used in these places. And then, of course, in the one source, we have a flood that lasts 150 days in the Priestley source, where the waters are increasing for 150 days. In the J source, it stops raining after 40 days. Now, what to make of these differences and what to make of these two different sources, that's entirely up to you. I think it's beautiful how they are weaved together in such a way that a person like myself who was open to these things originally thought, nah, this is just one story. But once you read it in the two different sources like we did here today, it's really hard to argue that this all came from one source. I'm going to do the next video in this series, our walk through the Bible here. I'm going to go ahead and do one more video on the flood and kind of draw some conclusions for me personally. You, of course, will come to your own. But I'm going to wrap it up in that way. But I just want to leave this one here today and let you draw your own conclusions on the two different sources. Do you think they're legit? Do you think it's one source? Leave me a comment down below and let me know. If you enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up, share it on social media, subscribe to the channel. Whatever you do, don't just sit there. Do something.